The storm on the horizon, the journey to the eastern frontier was long and arduous. Cassius and Lucius led a small contingent of Rome's finest warriors, hand-picked by the emperor himself. These men were seasoned veterans, their armor battered from years of service, but their spirits unyielding. As they marched, the landscape began to change. The lush fields and bustling cities of the empire gave way to barren plains and dense forests, territories that marked the edge of Roman control. The brothers knew that this land was wild and unforgiving, home to tribes that had resisted Roman rule for generations. The air was thick with tension, every step closer to the enemy's territory bringing with it a growing sense of foreboding. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the camp, a scout returned with news. The barbarian alliance had gathered in vast numbers, their encampment stretching for miles across the plains. They were preparing for a massive assault, intending to strike at the heart of the empire. Cassius and Lucius gathered their men around a campfire to relay the information. The mood was grim, but there was no fear, only a steely resolve to do what must be done. "We are outnumbered," Cassius began, his voice calm and authoritative. "But we have something they do not: discipline, strategy, and the strength of Rome. We have fought against greater odds before and emerged victorious." Lucius stepped forward, his eyes scanning the faces of their men. "These barbarians think us weak, that we will cower before their numbers. But we will show them the power of Roman steel. We will strike first, in the dead of night, and break their will to fight before the battle even begins." The men nodded in agreement, their hands instinctively gripping the hilts of their swords. They had followed the brothers into battle many times before, and they trusted them with their lives. The plan was set. Under the cover of darkness, they would launch a surprise attack on the barbarian camp, aiming to sow confusion and chaos among their ranks. It was a risky move, but it was their best chance to level the playing field. As the night deepened, the Roman warriors prepared for battle. They donned their armor in silence, their movements practiced and efficient. Cassius strapped on his heavy sword, feeling the familiar weight settle in his hand, while Lucius tested the balance of his spear, its sharp point gleaming in the firelight. Before they set out, Cassius spoke once more, his voice low but filled with conviction. "Remember, we fight for more than just ourselves. We fight for Rome, for our families, for everything we hold dear. We fight so that the empire may endure." Lucius placed a hand on his brother's shoulder, a silent gesture of solidarity. They knew that what lay ahead would be brutal, but they were ready. They had to be. As the Roman warriors moved out, the night was eerily quiet, the only sound the soft rustling of leaves underfoot. The sky was overcast, the moon hidden behind thick clouds, plunging the world into near total darkness. It was the perfect night for an ambush. When they reached the edge of the barbarian camp, the brothers signaled for their men to spread out, surrounding the enemy from all sides. Cassius raised his sword, and with a single, swift motion, brought it down, the signal to attack. The Romans charged into the camp with a ferocity that took the barbarians completely by surprise. Cassius led the assault, his sword cutting through the enemy with brutal efficiency. Lucius moved like a shadow among the chaos, his spear striking down foes with deadly precision. The barbarian warriors, caught off guard, scrambled to defend themselves, but the Romans were relentless. The battle was fierce and chaotic, the clash of steel ringing through the night. The brothers fought side by side, as they always had, their movements perfectly in sync. They were a force of nature, unstoppable and unyielding. But as the night wore on, the sheer number of barbarians began to take its toll. For every enemy they struck down, more seemed to appear. The Romans were holding their own, but they were slowly being pushed back, their lines beginning to falter. Cassius, seeing the tide of battle turning, knew they could not sustain the attack much longer. "Fall back," he shouted, his voice cutting through the din of battle. "Regroup at the ridge." Lucius, covering their retreat, managed to fend off several barbarians who had broken through the line. The Romans began to pull back in an organized retreat, their discipline keeping them from descending into panic. They regrouped at a nearby ridge, overlooking the battlefield. The barbarian camp was in disarray, fires raging as the remnants of the ambush played out. The Romans had inflicted significant damage, but the cost had been high. Many of their men lay dead or wounded, and the enemy still outnumbered them by a wide margin. As they caught their breath, Cassius looked out over the battlefield, his face set in grim determination. "This was just the beginning," he said quietly. "They will come for us at dawn, and we must be ready." Lucius nodded, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the horizon. "We will stand our ground. We will make our final stand here, on this ridge. If they want to take Rome, they will have to go through us first." The brothers knew the odds were against them, but they also knew they could not allow the barbarians to breach the empire's defenses. This ridge would be their last line of defense, and they would defend it with everything they had. As the first light of dawn began to break, the brothers and their remaining men prepared for what they knew would be the battle of their lives. The barbarians were gathering, their war cries echoing across the plains as they prepared for the final assault. Cassius and Lucius stood at the front of their men, their weapons at the ready. The fate of the Roman Empire now rested on their shoulders, and they would fight with every ounce of strength they had left. The storm was coming, and the brothers were ready to meet it.